TGIF, I'm going to kind of review this week and have some game plans for next week. Next week's when we have eclipses. So there could be some turning points. I've seen big turning points in the dollar, mainly peaks. I've seen the dollar eclipse on an eclipse. Telling you. That's why I started watching, and it was, 30 years ago. Anyway, I want to talk about the dollar because we had huge risk off, right, yesterday. And, I look at the dollar and it really didn't have much of a risk off bid, which tells me there could be unfinished business in this market. So I'm looking for it to test this line. It's going to come in around 90, shade under 96 next week. And should we get there, this is where I'm a buyer. I'll probably risk a little bit more than this low. It takes out this low, we're going to 92. Okay. That's some of the weekly targets going to be, a big break. This has to hold for us to have that scenario of one more dollar rally before the big decline. So that's my view on that. With that, I'd look to be. I just put a little short on in Canada. I covered my shorts in Aussie for I don't know 70 pips from the other day. I made a little, lost a little between cable and euro. See, cable, it's doesn't look bearish to me. I think it's going to make a run, maybe up towards 38. And euro, even though it's euro pounds lower, this isn't that bearish to me. Look how it held up during a day when the S&Ps were down 100 handles, which, kind of says, if it could hold up during a headwind, what if the S&P risk on comes back for a few days? So that's my view on the dollar. And while that's happening, gold is making hay. Okay, so I think we're headed up towards this 5,300 level. This is when the metals can complete whatever kind of bear market rally or corrective move that they're going to have. 78.6 is 5,300. Silver, you know, uh, I don't know if we're going to trade down here before we trade up with what the dollar's going to do. This is how we could see maybe rally back to 100 and then one more decline. And the gold, after we get up to say 54, 53 up here, then I'm looking for a pullback all the way back down to, I think we'll hit and take out the big round number at 4K. So that's my look there. Um, Gold silver ratio trying to turn. Looks like we still could have a 3 drive up here. We'll see. And oh yeah, can't forget the end. What a ugly week. So this is a top. Okay, so there will be bounces, as you can see. We're you know approaching a breakout of this triangle. So I think there'll be bounces, but this is just the beginning. We're going to 140 or lower in my view. And that ties in with, I've been talking about lower yields with the yen. There's our 10-year. I think we're headed back towards this low, 360-ish. And the bonds, people long bonds finally are having their day. Nice looking week. Maybe we're going to attack this level up here, 93. Take it a step at a time. But it looks like we should be able to get through here. Actually, a nice looking little formation. People will start calling this a head and shoulders bottom eventually with this type of neckline. Just get a, yeah, trend line. So just get this. They'll be looking at something like this. for a neckline. Okay, so that's a pretty nice formation down from 83.10. I could even take it to 100. So, we'll see what happens. Everyone's probably looking to get bailed on the S&Ps like they did last Friday. Remember, we closed ugly and then we rallied. This was it last week. So we had this close, and then out of nowhere, we had this. So I don't know if they're going to get bailed this time. Maybe they let people go home without the panic and it starts next week. But to me, this looks pretty ominous. Looks even worse in NASDAQ. The bull case would be, rallied, pulled back, and we're going to get away from here. So we'll see. If I'm right about the dollar pulling back, that should give it room. But the things I was bearish, they really accelerated. Um, you have wow, Nvidia's getting hammered pretty good. Okay, so Nvidia got back to the top of the range. I'm looking for next time under 170. It's history. Okay. Uh, the mags broke down. They're broke. It's a breakdown. Broadcom starting to give it back. Palantir, it's really looks ugly. And you know what? Uber's trying to diverge. Uber's probably getting lost, close to a buy. So now let's talk about oil. When I was with you yesterday, I said, you could probably tighten up the stops on longs under 64. And I'm thinking that we get a pullback into this zone. This is the zone that I was talking about. I don't think there's going to be any military action until, I don't know why, but nations don't start wars during the Olympics. It'd be unusual. So we'll see what happens after the Olympics there through the 21st. I still think I'll be buying it if it pulls back here, right around the 60-30 level. I sure think Nat Gas is getting pretty cheap. It's pretty volatile. I'd find a way to not trade futures, maybe ETFs or so. And Bitcoin did feel the risk off yesterday, and it's bouncing today. We're up about 800. So if we get this final 10% in S&Ps or so to 62, 6,300, it will be the acid test for everything. I'm looking for Bitcoin to bottom, and I think maybe it's already in, even though the S&Ps and NASDAQ especially have some work to the downside to complete. So the things that stay green during that time frame of risk off are your long candidates. Okay, so we'll see how Bitcoin can perform if we continue to have risk off down to those levels of the prior highs, 61.40, 62, 63 in that neighborhood, and NASDAQ 22K, 22 and a half, extreme would be 20. So this is going to be a great period to focus on what's working. Here's something that did work with everything lower, including gold and silver yesterday, was wheat. We broke out. Markets bottom in silence, and they top with violence. And you can't tell me that the S&Ps have not been violent for quite some time. This is violence, right? So you'll remember this expression, markets bottom in silence, top in violence. There's your violence, and here is your silence. So we broke out of the weekly trend line. People probably going to wait for a retest to see if the breakout holds. And if you're long wheat, you could be wrong and you should have no risk now because the market broke out. So if you've been buying it over the last month or so, you have money made. Could take a partial, but I don't want to see it negate this breakout because it's an important breakout. I don't want it to do this. See, this looked like it was trying one last time. This time it looks pretty solid. So I hope everyone filled up their storehouses during the breakout. The breakout was actually another signal. Yesterday was a signal to buy on the breakout. So now if we negate the breakout, you want to get out of the way. So I'll leave it there with wheat and hope you guys have your toe in the water. I think this is going to be a campaign trade. And as I've said before, wheat will become the silver of the grain complex. Have a great weekend, everybody. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. And don't forget to check us out in the room and see our posts and what's going on here. Don't try and make your day on a Friday. Yeah, see, well, it really is a lot of great content. I'm glad you guys are discovering Mike. And that's a wrap. Have a great weekend, everyone. Adios.